Good afternoon, everybody. This is Eric Holloway from my home here, Anchorage, Alaska. With tonight's Alaska weather for May 14th, we have a couple options for you to further refine your weather search, 1-800 number. It'll get you through a menu system, and we also have the web, of course, with weather.gov/Alaska. Take off Alaska and put in Fairbanks, Anchorage, or Juneau, and again, that will help you further refine your search. Lastly, if you have any questions about the program or any questions in general for the Weather Service, please email us at that email below. For the hazards map, we do have a wind advisory out for the upper AKwx Valley, winds up to 45 miles per hour there, and that is again up until 10 p.m. this evening. We also continue with a couple of flood advisories. One of them is in the upstream of the Moose Creek Dam, and again this is out until Saturday afternoon for mining flooding above the Moose Creek Dam. And once again, the lower Yukon, we have a flood advisory out for that until Saturday afternoon as well. High water in Emonic and Alakanuk areas. Alakanuk especially had some water in the village, but thankfully most of the homes there are on stilts. And that's all for the hazards map, but please go to weather.gov/Alaska for the latest hazards and watch warnings and advisories. For the breakup map, continuing the advisory isn't showing up there for the lower Yukon, but most of the Yukon is open or mostly open. We are watching the villages on the AKwx River there. There's still some opens there, but again, high water in the Kuskokwim River as well. Also, again, high water and flood advisory out for the lower Yukon for Alakanuk and Emonic. Otherwise, we did have some ice moving through Kobuk. They did have some high water there, but now the breakup front on the Kobuk River is down to Shungnak. Otherwise, we're going to be focusing in on the Kobuk, Noatak, and the North Slope rivers as far as breakup 2020. For the weather map, setting the satellite picture in motion, you can see some clouds associated with a trough, bringing some scattered rain showers, maybe even some snow showers in the southeast interior down through portions of the Yukon Territory, British Columbia. Otherwise, onshore flow across the North Slope brings some fog and some scattered snow showers along the North Slope. And again, a weak low that's moving westward through the northern Bering, mixed precipitation and maybe even a few showers out there in the western Aleutians. Otherwise, in a weak system south of the Alaska Peninsula, bringing some clouds near Kodiak, and again some scattered shower activity associated with that. For today's weather map, again that low, weakening low there in the northern Bering moving westward, 1009 millibar low, mixed precipitation associated with that system, rain showers down through the Aleutians, a little bit of shower activity in the southwest associated with a thermal low, and a trough that stretches out through southeast interior down through Yukon Territory, British Columbia, scattered rain showers and maybe a mixed precipitation in the Canadian area. Otherwise, onshore flow around Arctic High Ridge, bringing fog and some scattered snow showers across the North Slope. We do have a weak occluded front south of the Alaska Peninsula, bringing some showers into Kodiak Island and Alaska Peninsula. For tonight's weather, now 1009 millibar low near the White Cade Delta. Otherwise, that thermal trough continues to stretch out through the southeast interior down through Yukon Territory and British Columbia. Another low anchored in that system, 1015 millibar low. Otherwise, high pressure ridge in Yukon Territory, 1025 millibar high, and approaching cold front across the North Slope. Again, onshore flow bringing clouds and maybe a little bit of snow shower activity associated with that system. And an approaching occluded front in the just off the map there near the western Aleutians, bringing some showers and mixed precipitation in that area. Otherwise, scatters rain showers across Kodiak and Alaska Peninsula, weakening occluded front in the southern Gulf. For Friday's weather, again, here's the approaching low, 985 millibar low, approaching the Aleutians, occluded front, scattered rain showers. Thermal trough in the southwest, 1013 millibars. High pressure ridge in the northern Gulf, 1017 millibars. Trough and weak thermal low. In the Yukon Territory, 1010 millibars. Scattered rain showers associated with that system. And then snow showers associated with a cold front moving through the North Slope. Saturday's weather, 991 millibar low now. Trough associated with that system. Rain showers through the Aleutians. The stationary front now through the midsection of the state, and it continued onshore flow, snow showers along the Arctic coast, North Slope, and then 1016 millibar high in just over the Alaska Peninsula. For low temperatures Friday morning, we're going to be looking at teens across much of the North Slope, Adigan Pass 22, Anaktuvik Pass 16, Kotzebue 31, Fort Yukon 29, 25 in Eagle, 40s across much of the interior, 38 in Fairbanks, 40 in McGrath, 43 in Antioch, 41 in Bethel, and then Galena 36, Nome 36, 43 here in Anchorage, and Cordova 41, 43 in Homer, 43 in Kodiak, King Salmon 38, 40s across much of the Alaska Peninsula and then through the Aleutians, upper 30s mostly, St. Paul 32, St. Lawrence 27, and then St. Lawrence Island 27, I'm sorry. And then 40s across much of the Panhandle and Yakutat 40. Friday afternoon, looking at mid-20s across the North Slope. Anaktuvik Pass up to 40, 52 Fort Yukon, 52 in Eagle, and 45 in Kotzebue, and then 58 in Fairbanks, 50s, low 60s down through the southwest, Antioch 61, Bethel 61, 59 in McGrath, 59 in Lime Village, and then King Salmon 61, Dillingham 56, 40s, maybe even a 50 along the Alaska Peninsula down through the Aleutians, St. Paul 45, 52 in Kodiak, 47 in Cordova, 52 in Yakutat, 50s, upper 50s across much of the Panhandle, 58 in Haines. And then for low temperatures Saturday morning, looking at 20s and even teens across the North Slope, 23 in Point Hope, Adigan 23, Anaktuvik Pass 16, Fort Yukon 34, Eagle 29, Fairbanks 38, 40 in Galena, Nome 36, 40s across much of the southwest, 45 in McGrath, 43 in Antioch, 43 in Bethel, and then Lime Village 43, 38 in King Salmon, 43 in Dillingham, St. Paul 36, 45 in Kodiak, 40s and upper 30s across much of the Alaska Peninsula, and Aleutians with 43 in Kodiak, 43 in Cordova, 38 in Yakutat, 40s across the Panhandle, 43 in Haines, 43 in Ketchikan. For high temperatures, finally for Saturday afternoon, up mid-20s across much of the North Slope, 27 in Kaktovik, 25 in Prudhoe Bay, 25 in Utqiagvik, Point Hope 36, 45 in Adigan, 61 now in Fort Yukon, 59 in Eagle, 63 in Fairbanks, Galena 63, 52 in Nome, and then 65 in McGrath, Antioch 63, Bethel 63, Lime Village 61, 63 in King Salmon as well as in Dillingham, and then 49 in Kodiak, 45 in upper or low 50s across the rest of the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutians, St. Paul 43, 47 in Cordova, 59 in Yakutat, 61 in Haines, 61 in Ketchikan as well. Again, for Saturday, very nice weather. Continues across much of the mainland and into the southwest with a weak trough associated with the thermal activity, thermal low, and a trough stretching from the southeast interior down through the Yukon Territory and British Columbia. Otherwise, very nice weather continues.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Let's take a look at the flying weather for Friday morning. With onshore flow, we're going to have IFR conditions across much of the North Slope. Marginal conditions across the inside interior there with a weak trough, thermal trough there. Otherwise, high pressure brings marginal conditions across the Panhandle and portions of the Alaska Peninsula. Kodiak Island will see IFR conditions as well. And then around the next system coming into the Aleutians, some IFR conditions out that way. For Friday afternoon, again, IFR conditions continues along the North Slope. Scattered areas of IFR conditions across the Bering Sea, Aleutians, and Alaska Peninsula. And nice conditions by Friday afternoon, clearing out for Panhandle and much of the mainland. And Saturday morning, again, continued IFR conditions with onshore flow around the Arctic ridge of high pressure, onshore flow there, IFR conditions, scattered areas of IFR conditions across the Aleutians and into western or eastern Bering Sea. And again, showing up there by Saturday morning, southeast interior marginal conditions there, IFR conditions or VFR conditions over much of the Panhandle. Saturday afternoon, marginal conditions across the North Slope and into also across portions of southeast interior. And with another system moving into the Aleutians, IFR conditions out that way, marginal conditions through much of the central and eastern Bering Sea, and marginal conditions across much of the Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. IFR conditions showing up there in the Gulf region. Past conditions for Friday with those IFR conditions on the North Slope. Marginal conditions across the pass, but north entrance will see IFR conditions in the north entrance. Same for Adigan. Very nice flying conditions across the Alaska Range and down into south central. VFR conditions Lake Clark, Merrill. Rainy VFR, windy marginal but clearing to VFR conditions. Same with Isabel. Same with Mentasta, Tanita VFR conditions. Portage VFR conditions, Chilkoot and White, marginal early by the afternoon VFR conditions. Freezing levels for Friday morning, a meandering surface freezing level across the Bering Sea and across the northern part of the mainland and down into the Yukon Territory. Otherwise, elevated freezing levels come across the mainland with 4,000 to 6,000 feet reaching into south central and into the midsection of the mainland, approaching 8,000 feet there in the southern end of the Panhandle. For icing conditions, Friday, with that moisture, a little bit of icing possible, moderate icing, isolated moderate, across portions of the southeast interior and down through the southwest. Isolated areas considerable moderate. Also in portions of the eastern Brooks Range above 5,000 feet. And for the jet stream on Friday, 135 knot winds around the low pressure system down that way. Otherwise 50, 80 knots in the central Aleutians, 35 knots out there in the western Aleutians, 50 knots across the Alaska Peninsula. And across the eastern interior, 40 knots as you exit into the Yukon Territory, 50 knots from the east across the North Slope, and 9,000 foot winds, couple low pressure systems, otherwise 30 knots in the southeast and the Panhandle, 25 to 35 across portions of the southeast and Bristol Bay area. South central and Bristol Bay area. And light and variable conditions across much of the eastern Aleutians, 25 knots as you get down to the western Aleutians around that low pressure system. and 3,000 foot winds, light and variable across much of the mainland, 25 to 30 knots across Bristol Bay and into south central, otherwise around the low pressure system, 55 knots around the lull in the Gulf, and 30 knots as you get into the western Aleutians around that other low just south of the western Aleutians. For turbulence on Friday, below 4,000 feet there, with isolated moderate to considerable moderate in some areas of the western Brooks Range. Otherwise, nothing to be concerned about across the rest of the mainland.
Everyone wave goodbye. It's time for Orion to hit the road for his seasonal trip behind the sun. That's right, Orion is inching closer and closer to the sun as the Earth continues along its orbit, and soon it will disappear behind that miasma of incandescent plasma. But now we can find spring constellations like Boötes. To find him, look east after 9 p.m. tonight and use the Big Dipper's handle and follow the arc to Arcturus. Arcturus is at the bottom tip of a constellation that looks like a kite. That is Boötes the herdsman. It's the 13th largest constellation in the sky, and it contains a number of bright stars. But it is only visible in the spring and summer, so now is a good time to take a look. I'm Trace Dominguez, encouraging you to look for these seasonal sky friends while you keep looking up.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and we have a special guest in the studio today. We welcome Amanda Terborg of the Aviation Weather Center. Thanks for joining us, Amanda.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Amanda's flown in all the way from Kansas City, and for those of you that don't know, the Aviation Weather Center serves the lower 48 for aviators, just as the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit here in Anchorage serves all of Alaska. So I kind of wonder, what's the Aviation Weather Center in Kansas City doing to help out Alaska, Amanda?
Yeah, you know, we do a lot of collaboration work with our sister station up here. Lately, we've been doing a lot of work, especially in the satellite meteorology.
Okay.
In particular, we have been looking at ways to better identify icing conditions in clouds, which is a big deal up here because, as I'm coming to find out, even though I'm not from here, you guys have a lot of pilots here.
We have a lot of pilots. In fact, when you say you can't get there from here, that's how you get there.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so with icing potential then, what's Kansas City working on?
Well, we are working on something that will help us, again, identify the icing in the clouds. You don't want ice on your aircraft. No. Not only does it add a whole bunch of extra weight to your airframe when it attaches to the wings and the nose cone, but it can also mess with your aerodynamics.
Right.
And in the most serious conditions, that can mess with it enough that you can actually crash.
It changes the shape of the wing, and that makes it sometimes impossible to fly, right?
It does, yeah. So we want to figure out a way to better forecast for that.
Makes sense.
Now this particular image is over Alaska. The colors here are a little goofy. It doesn't look like your run-of-the-mill satellite image.
Okay.
But the red is where you have liquid clouds and the blue is ice. But again, it really doesn't tell you a lot where you have icing conditions in that cloud. Because in those clouds there's little droplets and they're cold and they're actually below freezing, but they're still liquid. And that makes them sticky.
Okay.
So when an aircraft flies through there, those droplets are sticking to the aircraft and it can happen amazingly fast.
Right.
And so that's what we're trying to find. And there is a product called the Aircraft Flight Icing Threat that does this. And it's basically looking at the temperature of the cloud, and it's also looking at the size of the droplets to identify a probability and intensity of those icing conditions.
Okay.
And if you flip to the next image, this is a case from Juneau, Alaska, where this probably wouldn't have been the best day to fly around Juneau.
Okay.
Now there was an area of moisture that pushed south from the southwest up along the coast that pushed in a stratus layer. And in the stratus layer there was a lot of those supercooled liquid drops or a lot of stickiness.
Okay.
And so the flight icing threat was able to, in the pinks and the reds there, was able to identify where that icing was. Now this is really cool. You know, it's really cool to be able to identify that. There is, you know, of course, caveats to every product. Much as we wish it would happen. Sun doesn't shine all the time, unless, I guess, if you live in northern Alaska during the summertime.
Right.
But we need that sun to be able to bounce off those clouds and to be able to see where those super cool drops are.
Okay, so it's a daytime only tool.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now, of course, you know, we're in the era of advanced satellite technology, and there is a satellite that can actually use moonlight to see clouds.
Yes.
And so sometime in the future, we hope to be able to do that.
Okay.
Another thing that is a bit of a challenge is multiple layers of clouds. You know, you can only see so far through a thick cloud.
Okay.
And if it's thick enough, sometimes you can't see a layer of icing that's below there.
Right. Right.
But even besides those caveats, this product has a lot of potential to help out Alaskan aviators here.
Well, it sounds like a really big deal, and something that forecasters at the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit could use probably on a daily basis, and especially in the middle of a really big storm.
Yeah, I would think so.
Do you have a really good success story in the lower 48 using this tool?
You know, it's a fairly new product, and so we're still evaluating it. But yeah, we've had a lot of cases where we have seen that it does tend to capture those icing conditions.
Okay, very good. Well, Amanda, thanks so much for sharing some of the very interesting satellite imagery and the tools that you're using there at the Aviation Weather Center in Kansas City with us here in Alaska. People can probably find some of this information online, right?
Yeah, here is a website here. It's a page from NASA Langley, and they have this imagery as well as a bunch of other satellite imagery that you can take a look at.
Okay, great. And I'm sure our friends at the Alaska Aviation Weather Center and the unit will be using that in the coming months there with your training and your help there to learn more about that tool to help Alaska aviators any day of the year. That's wonderful stuff. So thanks again for joining us, Amanda, and we welcome you to view any of our Alaska weather facts on YouTube anytime at the address below, and we'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at the sea ice analysis today. You can see that several openings, lower concentrations of ice forming originally from a Paleonia, but now weakening or lower concentrations of ice with ice melting that time of year, with some anchor ice still anchored in the Norton Sound area, Kotzebue Sound, and just off the coast of the northwest coast there, but otherwise degrading ice across much of the Bering Sea and Beaufort Sea at this point. Friday's marine forecast: winds in the inside waters for southeast. Friday, looking at winds generally from the southeast, 5 to 15, 15 in the southern end of inside waters. Outside waters, winds generally from the southeast as well, up to 20 knots there. Seas as high as 7 feet. Northeast Gulf Coast, winds generally from the southeast or east, 15 knots. Seas as high as 5 feet. For Saturday, winds generally from the north, inside waters, 10 knots. Seas as high as 3 feet. Clearing straight. Otherwise, outside waters, winds generally from the north or northeast at 15 to 20. Seas as high as 10 feet in the southern inside waters. Southern outside waters, I'm sorry. And then marine forecast for south central North Gulf, looking at winds generally from the east at 15. Northeast Gulf, winds generally from the east or northeast, 25. Seas as high as 7 feet. Prince William Sound from the northeast at 15. Seas as high as 3 feet. Cook Inlet, winds generally from the north, 15 knots. Northern and central Cook Inlet. Otherwise, Kamishak Bay, Barren Islands, looking at winds generally from the east at 20, seas as high as 5 feet. For Saturday, south central, northern Gulf, looking at winds generally from the west, 15 to 20, seas as high as 7 feet. Northeast Gulf, winds generally from the southwest at 15 to 20, seas as high as 20 feet. Prince William Sound, generally from the southwest at 10. Cook Inlet, winds generally from the south, 10 to 15. For Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, around Kodiak Island, winds generally from the northeast at 25 to 30. Small craft or gales out expected. On the south side of the Alaska Peninsula, winds generally from the northeast at 20, seas as high as 9 feet. North side of the peninsula, generally from the northeast at 15. For Saturday's marine forecast around Kodiak Island, winds generally variable, 15 to 20. South side of the peninsula, jump from the east at 15, seas as high as 8 feet. North side of the peninsula, winds generally variable as well. Seas high as 3 feet, winds generally from 10 knots. For Aleutian Chain, looking at winds generally from the east at 10 to 25 knots across the region. We do have small craft advisory through tonight in some of those areas, seas as high as 7 feet. And then for Saturday, looking at winds generally from the east as well. Look like we're going to be at small craft or gales out that way. Winds generally from the east at 20 to 35 knots, seas as high as 13 feet as you get out in between Kiska and Shimia. For west coast, winds generally from the north, 10 to 20 knots around St. Matthew Island. Winds generally from the north at 15, seas as high as 3 feet. For Saturday's forecast, winds generally variable, 10 to 25 around St. Matthew. Winds generally from the northeast at 15. Otherwise, down around Cribs, winds generally from the east at 15. For the Arctic coast, winds generally from the north, 10 to 20 knots up that way. Otherwise, northwest coast, winds generally from the northeast at 20 to 25 knots through the Bering Strait. Winds generally from the north or northeast, 15 to 20. And then Saturday's Arctic coast, winds generally from the north, 10 knots. Northwest coast, winds generally from the northwest, 20 to 30. Gales likely out, maybe in small craft. Otherwise, through the Bering Strait, winds generally from the northeast, 20 to 25. Seas as high as 4 feet in some of those areas, pack free. Tonight's weather, 1,009 millibar low in the southwest. Thermal trough down through the southeast interior into the British Columbia. Scattered rain showers associated with that system.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.